Tape Deck Media.
My friend Dan, he's got a podcast, 'cause all comics need a podcast, and nobody had a podcast called The Art of Bombing. So Dan went out and bought a tape deck. Who knows why he bought a tape deck? Podcasts don't get played on tape decks, but Dan is from the 80s. So hey there, all you funny jerks, come talk to Dan about your work. Tell him all about your worst times. It's The Art of Bombing.
Earlier, you just said that on Tuesday you had a show. How'd that go?
It was good. It was, I don't know if you remember Dat Fan from Last Comic Standing, but he moved to New Jersey.
Oh,
And
really?
he invites comics to come up to his studio, and they do like a Zoom show. Now, I do it in person, but he's got comics from all over the country that are part of the Zoom show. And it's pretty cool. I've done it a few times. He always asks me to come back, so I guess he likes my stuff. So that's what I did on Tuesday, and then this weekend I've got a couple shows, one in Toms River, New Jersey, one in New York. But by the time this airs, they will
It'll be yeah. I just got off working. I run a festival, and we just had that last week, so that's what I was. I've just so much work to go that goes into that stuff. It's an undertaking for sure.
I don't like to produce single, one-off shows. I can't imagine the festival, how much planning and how much, fires it have to put out right through the entire show. And then after the show, I at my age, that would probably kill me. So you won't see Joe Scrocca putting on any festivals.
Not anytime soon.
Happy to help as long as the headaches aren't mine. But
yeah. Don't mind being in them, but don't want anything to do with producing them. That's probably a smart, wise choice, for being honest.
Anyway, if I was younger and I had the energy and I wasn't on high blood pressure medication, maybe.
Yeah. Speaking of, you said you're in New Jersey. Is that where you started comedy as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in New Jersey my whole life. I'm 64, and I was born and raised in Wilder, New Jersey. Currently live in Upper Township, New Jersey, which is the same county as I grew up in. And I started a little less than 2 years ago, December 2023. People always ask me, "Oh, was it a lifelong dream?" No, I literally woke up one day in December 2023 and said I was sick of dating crazy women. I want to do something fun. How about stand-up comedy? How hard could that be?
Well, comedy.
I'm finding out.
I'm gonna say comedy.
The story I'm going to talk to you about on this show.
Comedy could be considered a crazy woman.
But it's in a different way.
Described as.
I can shut it off.
Or a crazy person, I should say. Because it can go either way.
Understand? Listen,
That's funny.
I understand.
That's hilarious. Well, that kind of already answers the question I was going to ask for the follow-up. What kind of inspired you to get into comedy? But
I kid you not. I've had relationships where a woman peed on me for no reason.
Oh, geez.
A woman hid her heroin addiction from me for like weeks. Another woman, we went on one date, had another date planned, and she sent me a Dear John text saying she had to rake leaves. Now, talk about a reason to not go out with somebody that tell me you don't like me, I'm an asshole, my breath stunk, whatever, but to rake leaves, that was like the lamest.
Wow.
So I decided, you know what? Fuck that. Well, I'm sorry. I didn't mean.
Oh, you're fine. A little slip here and there. That's all good.
Screw this stuff. I'm not gonna, have to deal with this anymore. And I decided, let me start doing comedy. And so I found an open mic. And turned out the place was a biker bar that housed the notorious New Jersey Motorcycle Club. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm not nervous about doing stand-up, but I'm nervous about getting killed by these guys. But
especially if I'm not funny.
Or say, I had to pull all my motorcycle jokes, but it went well. And then the next night I had 5 minutes at a club because I'd gone to this club just to see comedians in my hometown of Wildwood. This guy ran this little club and I loved it. And I said to him one day, I said, listen, I want 5 minutes. And he said, well, tape yourself, send it to me. And if I think you're funny, I'll put you on. He gets back to me, says, you're hilarious. You got your 5 minutes. So Friday, December 15th, I actually did 5 minutes at Old Movies by the Sea in Wildwood, New Jersey. And, I needed to have a warm up. So that's why I did that open mic but it immediately got me hooked. I loved it. I said, this is fun. I'm not nervous. People laugh a little bit, if I could get the laughs up. And now, um with the exception of a couple bombs, including the one we're going to talk about today, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's get into that. Let's hear your story.
All right. So maybe a month into stand-up, a month and a half, I went to an open mic in Philadelphia. I hadn't gone to Philadelphia before. And I always like to tell a little story about, the town or the area, just to open up, break the ice. So I don't know, you're young. Back in 1985, Mayor Wilson Good of Philadelphia, to this day, is the only mayor in United States history that actually ordered a bomb to be dropped on his city. So what happened is, so I basically said, listen, when I come to Philadelphia, I don't think about soft pretzels or Liberty Bell. I think that Philadelphia is the only city where the mayor ordered a bomb to be dropped on his own city. And the reason he did it was to get people out of the house. And I'm thinking, the third largest city in America could have probably come up with a better idea than dropping a bomb on the house to get people out of the house. Crickets dead. Now, there weren't that many people there, but the looks I was getting, I come to find out this bar was 2 blocks from where the bomb was dropped. So there were people in that bar that probably had family affected, because this bomb not only destroyed the building it was dropped on and killed several people, it burnt the entire city block of homes. So that's not the funny part. And I don't think it's
that's
funny.
That's a real thing.
Not funny. What I thought the humor would be is the absurdity that the third largest city in the country couldn't come up with a better idea.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a 3-minute set. I pretty much finished. I walked off. This fellow comes up to me and he says, listen, that bomb, it was dropped like right around the corner. I said, oh, okay. Now am I going to get out of this place alive? And so, I learned very quickly to learn my geography. So if I'm gonna talk about that particular area, make sure
do more research.
So that was my baptism into truly bombing, to the point where I was afraid I would make it back to my car.
And those are the scariest ones.
Yeah, no, this one was worse than the biker bar. But you live and you learn, and look, comedy, it's a living, breathing learning. You're always trying to make it better, improve it. I never want to do anything that's offensive to people. I stay away from politics, religion, race, or anything like that. I don't, I try to keep it really confined to stories about my life. That's pretty much what a lot of my comedy is about, because living 64 years, you go through a lot of crazy stuff, meet a lot of crazy people, have a lot of crazy things happen. And, having started doing comedy, you learn to look at that in a way to say, I can make this funny, I can make this, or try to make it funny, and keep massaging it. And, things just evolve, and it's a, like I have a bit, and they were 2 separate bits, to where now I have a callback from the one bit to my closing bit, and it was always there. And it just took time to say, hey, wait, you know what? I can make this happen. And it just I don't know if I'm going to do any of the bits but it's just a quick story. And this is a true
Mm-hmm.
story. My mother thought I was stupid when I was a kid, so she bought me this shirt that said, "Hello, my name is Joseph John." And I say, she was serving me up to the pedophiles on a silver platter with that stupid shirt. And I wear the shirt to school one day, and I'm walking home. This weird guy in a van. "Hey, Joseph John, get in the van. I've got some candy." "Hey, Joseph John, get in the van. I've got a puppet." I didn't know who he was talking to. My mother was right. I didn't know my name. And then at the end, I talk about the story about going to Wilton Manors, which, if you may or may not know, is the second gayest town in America. And I went there and I said, "I'm not gay, but I was curious. I wanted to go into a gay bar." So I was in the gay bar having a drink, minding my own business. And the guy comes up to me and says, "How much? How much what? How much hair do you have under your shirt?" And I said, "Nobody's ever asked me this question before. I don't know how to answer it." So I just lift my shirt and start petting my chest hair and said, "This guy starts petting my chest hair. I get it. I'll be his little Italian Shia pet for a while. Maybe I'll get a free drink." I said, "But not below the equator. I'm not gay." So then he said, "Okay, if you ever want to switch teams, I'd love to be your coach. Here's my number." And he starts walking away. Now, originally, that was where I put an ending of, and I still have his number in case I want to get my chest petted again down in Florida. And then I realized I could tie it into the "My name is Joseph John" shirt and say, as he's walking away, he turns around and asks me, "When you were a little kid, did you have a shirt that said, 'Hello, my name is Joseph John'?" And it's a good way to close out my set. And it's just so, but that's why I always say, you've got things there, and it's always evolving. It's like, "Oh, I can change this around," and sometimes you think something's funny, it just never is, and you scrap it from the repertoire.
Yep. No, absolutely. I mean, I've definitely, when it comes to that, I'll try. Well, sometimes I get stubborn and I'll keep trying before I let a bit go. But then sometimes it's just a matter of putting it on the shelf and coming back to it.
Yep.
I've definitely, because as you evolve as a comedian, you get better at writing, and looking at things in a different viewpoint, and you can set the bit aside for a while and then come back a couple of years later, and it's like, oh, it's putting that puzzle together.
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part about comedy, is putting the puzzle pieces, and when they
Yeah.
come together and form the perfect joke, that's what it's all about.
And that's the beauty of what we do is we can continue to be creative on something that we're not using, and like you said, just kind of let it sit for a while, and then one day something clicks. "Oh, if I change this or add this." And I have a Sirius satellite radio, and I love listening to A Comic Mind with Jeff Foxworthy. I don't know if you've ever listened, but Jeff, it's like a 90-minute segment that he interviews different comedians, and they talk about being a comedian, the writing process, the performing process, and it's very, very, very interesting. And I learn a lot from that, just listening to how other people, because like you said, I might, being as new as I am, do a bit once or twice and really not getting any laughs, say, "Oh, screw it, I'm just going to trash it." But you really should shelve it and say, right now I can't make that funny, but a year from now, 2 years from now, I might be able to find a way to make it funny.
Yep. Well, and sometimes, yeah, I know, at least for me, I've had instances where I, I just thought of something, or, whatever, a little joke or whatever, and I just couldn't get it to work, put it away. And then I write another joke, and then suddenly, oh, now this thing that I had shelved actually works well with this new thing. And then you have a fully formed joke.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Yeah.
that's one of the things that I love about comedy, is just how that works, how that
Hmm.
just the constant, our material is a living, breathing entity, to where, it's always, changing, hopefully getting better. And, so I really, prior to getting into this, I never realized. I mean, years ago, I managed a couple of rock bands, and it always amazed me that when they'd write a new song, they've created something that, before them putting this together, it didn't exist before. And that was
Hmm.
always cool to me. And I never thought I was good at that creative process. But in comedy, it's not even a matter of the creative process. It's more of just, these are my life stories. And, I embellish a little bit. Like, I really did have a shirt. My mother did buy me that shirt. There was no guy in a van, but
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's what a lot. I mean, it's a lot of jokes are just exaggerations of something real. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean,
And I
it's
just
funny
didn't
too
real.
because I've had somebody ask me one time if one of my jokes was real, and I was like, no, I mean, not. I mean, it stems from truth, but not really. Like, it's not like true word for word.
You know, it's funny because I've had people come up to me and say, you know, we don't have to ask you if these are true stories because the way you tell them with such authority that we know this really happened to you. And I'm not going to
Yeah,
pull the curtain aside and let them look behind the curtain and say, well, this is part's true, this part's not true. But there's truth in
yeah.
every story. Like there's one story, you know, that I do once in a while, and you know, I refer to my ex-wife. She's really not an ex-wife. My wife passed away 11 years ago. We had a great marriage, but you know, dead wife jokes don't really land well, so I refer to her as my ex-wife.
Hmm.
And this word for word happened. I mean, I took her to an appointment with a gynecologist, and I'm sitting in the exam room with her, and I said, the doctor's under the little vagina tent doing whatever he's doing under there, but she was doing, he zips out and he raises his head and looks at me. And before he could say anything, I said to him, I said, you saw your shadow, 6 more weeks of no sex. And my wife starts cracking up, and he's just got this stone face looking like, you know, and I said, that's good. You're going to use it, and you better give me credit. I mean, and that really did happen. Um, you know, so it's really, it's just, you know, you live life and you have these crazy events that you experience and live through. And if you have a knack for making it funny, because when I first started, what I would do, I would whiteboard everything. I would use a black marker and a red marker. The black marker was all the words. The red marker were words that had to stay in. And then I would do it, and I'd start whittling away and condense it, you know, and now I'm able to do that just on a pad of paper, or even in my head. Like I'll go up there, I'll
Hmm.
work some new stuff at an open mic, let's say. And I mean, I know what the premise is. Like my iPhone's invaluable. My between notes and voice memo, I mean, that's where everything is. I put the premise in there, and I say, okay, how do I make this funny? How do I work the bit around this? And so it's just it's interesting. And I never, before starting this, I never had this creative. I couldn't color inside the lines. That's how little talent or no talent that
Hmm.
I had as far as any type of artistic ability. But it's just, I guess if you retrain your brain to think a certain way, and I guess that's what we as comedians do, is
Yep.
we train our brain to find funny in everything, you know, it's an interesting way. It's an interesting way to live, because you'll just be sitting there at dinner with somebody, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, I gotta have to write something. You know, what are you doing?
Yep.
I'll just, you know, something just happened that I have to make a note of. And I may
Yeah,
be able
or I'll
to.
forget. I need to get better at taking notes. I'll think of something and don't put it down in my notes. Or I need a better notes is another thing because sometimes I go through my note file on my phone and I'm like, I don't I don't even know what this means anymore.
I have a couple like that, so I've learned to be as detailed as possible, just to get an idea of, okay, why did I think whatever I wrote here could be funny? I have
Right?
one thing in there, something about eye color, and I'm thinking, what the hell? What I have no idea what I was thinking. I to this day I have no idea what I was thinking, why I put that in there, how I could possibly think eye color would be fun. I don't know. But so from that mistake, I've learned I've got to be more detailed.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I've just opened up my file and I have one just cats. That's the only note. Cat. I don't cats. I'm just like that makes no sense. I mean, there's a lot there, but there had to be something more specific when I took the note, but
Yeah, and again, I don't mean to frighten you, but the older you get, the worse it gets, because I'll sit there and I'll think of something and I'll go to my phone. By the time I open notes, I forgot what I was thinking that fast, and then later it'll come to me and say, oh yeah, and I'll jot it down with pencil and paper, and then just. But it really and again, I think it's the way we train our minds as comedians to think of things, is that it's there. And if we don't get it down somewhere, it's going to be gone, because then the next thing's going to come up and the next thing.
Yep.
And so, you know, it's interesting to be part of this now. And I know a lot of people doing this, you know, for years, or, you know, doing some sort of entertaining show business. So for me to come in cold at my age with no training, I didn't take any courses, I didn't read any books, I just literally got up and did that open mic and said, okay, here's my stories. And I'm
Hmm.
telling to a bunch of guys in jackets that
Do you
were
think having like because you said when you started you wrote everything on a whiteboard, which
yeah.
that's an interesting thing to me because I mean, I haven't nobody, I've never had anybody on that wrote like that when they first started, you know. I mean, most people do the whole, you know, pen and paper, whatever, but using a whiteboard and then, like you said, breaking it up with the color for editing, like, do you feel like that helped, you know, give you like a better visual because you could like see the words and see the difference
Yeah,
in color?
absolutely. And my son introduced me to a term, word economy. And that's, I
Hmm.
mean, you can't go too long or you lose people. So
Yep.
take out everything that doesn't belong. But when you first write it out, you don't know what that is. Now, you know, or at least I know what words have to stay in there. That's why I did
Hmm.
it with the two colors. I didn't want to lose sight of the important word or words or the premise, you know, and then I could kind of work around, eliminate words, change words, shorten, you know, and so that's really how I started, because my brain wasn't set up yet to think
Hmm.
like that. And it was it was just a way for me to be able to get it down, look at it and say, okay, uh, the basic premise is funny, but it's too long, or what can, you know, if I switch words around, and really that helped. That for the first 6 months, that's pretty much how I wrote every bit that I did. I don't use it anymore. I still have the whiteboards, and I'll go back to them if I think that I need to.
Need to, yeah.
But I think you eventually do train your brain. The whiteboard's in my brain now. I mean, I
Yeah,
see it.
absolutely.
I I
I'm same. I do everything, and I rarely write pen to paper. It's usually
yeah.
just work the bit out in my head.
and
And
and and I think that, you know, that for me took, I don't want to say training as much as, well, adapting, because I didn't, you know, I didn't have any prior experience in anything entertaining. I mean, my degree's in accounting and tax law, and I still run a mortgage brokerage company. So, you know, I'm like Mr. Button Down Shirt and, you know, pen and paper, adding machine crap stuff. You know, that was my life. But I've always loved comedy. I mean, I was a kid
hmm.
of the old Cheech and Chong records, George Carlin, Class Clown. HBO came out and was, oh my God, this is a whole nother world. They had the comedians. You know, I remember seeing Jerry Seinfeld do his early stuff. Some other great comedians that, you know, developed into huge acts. And it was like, this is great, because you're seeing uncensored, funny comedians, and it's really great to see. And, you know, I love, you know, when I do shows, I love seeing other comics, see what they can do, see what they, you know, and you know, it's funny, they come to me and say, well, what did you think? Oh, I don't care. I mean, I thought you were funny, but I'm a newbie. You've been doing this a lot longer. You know, how do you feel? Are you comfortable with your material? Are you
Yep.
comfortable with the crowd reaction? I said, you know, one thing I tell everybody, you know, is that anybody that has the guts to get behind that microphone and try, look, we're up there by ourselves. We don't have a band behind us. We don't have, and it's us versus the audience. And anybody that has the guts to take that on, they have 100% of my respect always. They could be the
Yep,
worst
absolutely.
comic, the worst material. If you have the guts to go up there and do it, you have my respect. And
Yep.
I think that that's something that people don't realize. You know, people take for granted. Oh, you know, these guys are up there. They're funny. This, it takes a lot. It takes a lot, because you don't know. I mean, I usually have my opening bit that I usually always get a laugh, but there's going to be one day where I do that opening bit and it's going to be crickets and it's probably going to throw me. And then I'm going to like, okay, do I have to change course? Do I need to change the material? Do I have to, And so uh, I could never say a bad thing about anybody that does what we do, because it takes guts.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, we're going to start wrapping up.
Okay.
I mean, that was a lot of good information, especially with your writing process. And I just one quick follow up. So when you first started and you're using the whiteboard, were you writing pretty consistently? Did you have like I'm going to dedicate so much time a day, or?
Not dedicate so much time a day, but I kept writing because I had all the memories.
Yeah.
I mean, all this came from, like, I have a story about getting a titty whipping in a strip club. That really happened. So I had, okay, how do I turn this into a story and make it funny? So I had to write it. So the writing was constant. And it still is, because things will pop into my head, or I'll see something, or I'll think of something. I say, oh, I remember that. Let me write down the basic premise, and so I'm always writing in my notes, and then from there I'm developing the stuff. But in the beginning it was constant. Oh, I have to write this down, because I had a book too. I have a book that I wrote everything down, but I transferred it to the whiteboard because in the book I just couldn't. I mean, I need to, maybe because my eyesight's going. I need to see bigger letters, bigger words, and just kind of comprehend what I wrote and where I want it to go to make it funny.
Yeah. Yeah.
But writing, it's important you have to be fresh. I mean, I've been doing this less than 2 years, and I've got at least 2 30-minute sets that are completely different. Working on, and always working on more. And I'm trying to get a 30-minute clean set, because I've lost some paying gigs because can you make it clean? I said, I don't know. I could do 30 minutes. I could do 15 minutes clean. My stuff's not horribly.
Yeah.
It's like,
but it's good to have it in the bank for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can't hurt to, to create a clean set. I mean, you never know who you're going to get a job offer from.
Yep.
So,
exactly.
I mean, I don't want to change who I am, but I can, I can tone it down if I have to.
I was gonna say, I don't think it's necessarily changing. It's adapting in a sense. You know what I mean? It's more adapting than changing who you are. Well, this has been great. Where can people follow you, and anything you want to promote?
Yeah. So all of my social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube is Joe Scrocca Comedy. JoeScrocca Comedy. There's video clips, there's show dates, there's just info. I don't post like a lot of random, like I see a lot of people just doing random videos and whatnot. And I just, I don't want to oversaturate. So I don't do stuff like that. I just try to put out useful information. And let me pull up my calendar real quick so I can see. So like on the 31st of August, I'll be at a place called the Bee's Knees in Cape May, New Jersey. On the 23rd, I'll be in Wildwood, my hometown, at the Wildwood Comedy Festival. The 22nd, I'll be doing a show at the Brook Arts Center up in North Jersey. So yeah, those are probably the shows that once this airs, that I've got in the hopper right now. And I didn't want to do anything in August. I really didn't. I ended up with 10 shows. People called me, and I'm not.
That's good.
Yeah, it felt good. It felt good to be wanted.
Yeah, that's all. At the end of the day, that's all we want, is to be wanted.
That's right. And loved, and laughed with and at. But it's I want to thank you so much for having me on the show, because I in our business there's no harm in bombing.
No, you're not bombing, you're not getting better.
Exactly. And I just wanted to share that one story with you, because it really was. It's how many people could say they have a story about bombing, telling a story about a bomb?
Yeah,
And so
right.
I think that's the hook that got you. Say, tell me more. I want you on the show.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that, but I really do. I appreciate the time and the opportunity you've given me to tell that story, and hopefully, like you said, hopefully some of the stuff that I do helps. I'm all about helping other comedians any way that I can. We're a small group of dysfunctional people, and it's better if we stick together than try to
Absolutely.
tear each other down. And I do see that once in a while, the jealousy and whatnot. And it's like, cool your jets. We're in this
Yeah.
together. And I always said, people are like beat me up because I've done so much in so little time. And I said, listen, if the roles were reversed, I wouldn't be pissed at you or trying to hurt you. I would want to be your friend and find out, how did you do it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah. What are you
I tell
doing?
people, I just ask. I reach out and I ask people for shows. I ask people for, podcast opportunities. So that's where I'm too stupid to know any better. I just ask. But I think that we're a small community, and I think we're stronger if we stick together and help one another. And I've done a couple seminars on how I've gotten booked, and I'm happy to do it. There's no secret. It's not.
Mhm.
I'm happy to share my info. So if you ever want to do a like a Zoom podcast or something with other comics just to talk about different things, anything, if you think I've got something to contribute, I'd love to be part of that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been fantastic. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
This has been a Tape Deck Media production. Thank you for listening.